Welcome to Exploring Your Society. I'm your host, Sean Bowman.
I'm the man, woo, the myth, woo, the legend, woo, Mikey B, woo.
Tonight we have Raul Torres from Tower Paranormal Investigation. Say what's up, Raul.
Hey.
So, Raul, I know we met once at Sleepy Hollow. What got you interested in the paranormal?
I heard like an echo. What got me interested in the paranormal? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, what got me interested in the paranormal was years of always, I was always into horror films, and I'm gonna mute myself. Hold on one second. I keep hearing echoes. How do I get rid of that?
I don't know. Do you have headphones?
Oh, yeah.
That might help the cause.
Were you echoing when we were in the backstage?
Yeah. Okay. Hello?
Does that help out?
Let's see. Okay. I think it does.
That's better?
Yep. Okay. Now I don't hear echoes. Yes.
Testing. Testy.
Okay.
So what got you into the into investigating? Are you able to hear?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I know I just repeated 3 times. That's why I was waiting for the third repeat for some reason. But what got me into yeah. Let me. Okay. I'm just not gonna pay attention to the echoes. So what got me into the paranormal was for years I've always watched like horror films or read books on ghosts and UFOs and different matters. And I was, was always trying, as I read something, I was thought to myself, there's probably a plausible explanation for most of these things. So I was like, I always thought to myself, it'd be great if I could, one day find time and start, figuring out a way that I could get more involved and investigate some of these places myself instead of watching it on TV or reading about it in one of the ghost magazines. And I always, I always heard stories of people in my family that, they so-called saw ghosts, or I've gone to funerals where people also got possessed. All these things, made me wonder. And then at the same time, I have a very scientific mind. Growing up, I studied analytics, I studied a lot of science. And I always thought to myself, if you believe in energy, and the energy can't be destroyed, and it just goes from one form to another, then why doesn't the spirit work the same way? Why is it that when we die, let's say we die, why can't we just start up a human being automatically hours later, not necessarily have to wake them up within 2 or 3 minutes? So it always made me wonder, what if we were automations, there must be something in us that differentiates from being alive or dead. And if energy doesn't get destroyed or go away, then where does it go? And is that what hauntings are? Spirits that are not going back to the source, are staying somehow on Earth due to the fact that they feel they're incomplete and something they needed to do. They're not aware that they passed away, or simply may not even be ghosts themselves or spirits, but I believe very much that a lot of times they're thought forms. People wish something is alive, wish somebody's around, wish there's a spirit or way of communicating with the dead, and they actually create an entity with their thoughts. There's a lot of interesting stories that were scientific, true stories. Like I'm trying to remember. I think it was called the Richmond experiment or something. I forgot the name of the experiment, but it was an experiment they did in a college where they tricked people into thinking that this place was haunted. They made up a story. They made up a being,
Talking
and
about
they
the
separated.
Philip
You know, they had
experiment?
these people go into a room with a Ouija, and they told them a fake story, a fake legend. And the next thing you know, people started moving. You know, the planchette, doing a message. And the weird thing about it, as they were doing a message, they were, the scientists were trying to prove that they were mentally doing micro movements and wishfully, creating a message. But at the same time, there was increases of energy in the room, and there was things falling off the shelf. The scientists couldn't explain that. They couldn't explain why there was things happening in the room that were poltergeist type activities. If this was all in the people's mind, and it was a fake story. So things like that I read and I found very interesting is like what pretty much made me want to go into the paranormal. And as I started having a little bit extra money and having resources, and my wife didn't want me to stay at home much, I took advantage of that and decided to start doing investigating.
I think you're talking about the Philip experiment. Can you hear me, Raul?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I think it's the Philip experiment is what you were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. I know we did a TikTok on it. That's why I remember the story.
And that kind of coincides with the blog post that I saw that you wrote up. One part of it is just talking about energy transfer and people having their own biases based on belief, and that's something I wanted to touch up. It sounds like my theory was always when someone passes away, their energy shoots out, goes to either be reincarnated like you described, or if you believe in heaven and hell, wherever it goes, and then what's left behind is just like a little bit of energy from the initial shock of the mass amount of energy leaving their body. And that's why when we interact during investigations, a lot of this stuff is fragmented. You don't get always a complete, sentence or anything like that. It's a lot of fragments, and that's one of my theories as well. So does that mean, as far as the belief structure, you do believe more heavily on the reincarnation side of things, or do you have like a religious background at all?
Believe it or not, I grew up very Catholic. I was even an altar boy. I did the holy orders, everything. But I'm not particularly religious myself. Like as I got older and I started reading about religion, I kind of stayed away from it and started seeing how all the religions have certain things in common. They all have, they all have the stories of, the flood in one way or another. They have the stories of the God with different gods, but they also have things in common. Like they all have stories of spirits. They all have, the Holy Spirit in one thing, or they have demons or jinns, but these are all the same thing, just different cultures and different. And it's funny because you'll watch something on YouTube where someone goes into a house and it's a demon house. But then you go watch something on YouTube where it's an Arabic guy and he goes, oh, it's a jinn. Well, how come it's not a demon? It's a jinn this time. You know what I mean? It's all cultural. So we're all the same. So that's why I'm not into the religion so much. And to me, religion is, it sounds bad to say this, I'll probably get in trouble. But to me, religion is something people use in order to explain things they couldn't understand. Things happen weather-wise, and it had to be a god. They prayed and they thought, their 50 days of prayer somehow brought the rain, and it didn't happen. So right now, that's why, just like spirituality, just like spirits, paranormal, a lot of stuff is just things that people can't explain at the moment until science catches up and pretty much it finds an explanation for it. But like going along the lines about the spirit leaving, there was also that famous the Kirlian photographs where they're supposed to be able to take pictures of your soul, and they've taken pictures of like a dead body before while someone's dying, and then after, and they lose that Kirlian.
Mm.
And supposedly these Russians did an experiment where they actually on like an atomic scale were able to weigh that there was a difference of a body being alive, not alive, when it was alive, and then when the person passed away it lost 0.0000 like astronomical weight at that moment. So maybe there is a soul. I mean, I find it very interesting that, like I said, if we were just machines, just like an old car, You could take a car 10 years later, and if you're able to put the oil in it and recharge the battery, you're going to be able to get it started. But people, you can't. You can't take a dead body, even if that's why it's scary. Like right now with cryogenics, nobody really knows what's going to happen with cryogenics. That's going to be the first thing that's going to dispute souls. When someone's cryogenically frozen and you bring them back, are they going to be the same person? Or is it going to be like one of those 80s movies? It was an 80s movies, right? Where one of the BG guys, he came back from the dead or something, and he had a different soul in him.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question, because it seems like it would be the same energy. The energy would be entombed along with the body. But yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to eventually investigate. We'll probably be long dead before they're able to do that.
Correct.
But
But
yeah,
how
that
would
is
it be
pretty
entombed?
wild.
Think about that. If the moment your body dies, supposedly the spirit leaves the body, and for cryogenics, they literally have to kill your body
Yeah.
and freeze you immediately. So you would think the spirit would be gone. It wouldn't know any different. It wouldn't know to come back in 10 years, because there might be an opening. It's just going to leave and continue.
That's true. And that does go along the lines with your theory too of energy passing through and then eventually being reincarnated into another vessel.
Correct. So that's why I kind of believe, like going back to the original question, I kind of believe in reincarnation. I believe sometimes, I'm not sure 100% that you come back as that person, but sometimes I think that your spirit may enter like this, I guess like a blob, like clay, a piece of clay, and you put it back in the pile. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it goes back in that pile. And when it goes back into a new person, that person has memories, fragments. Mm-hmm. So you'll get instances where someone goes, oh, I remember when I was an adult, I was here. Well, you're getting that fragment of that soul, whatever memory that soul had.
Kind of like a day or something.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've had discussions with Freighter Crow, who's in the chat right now, about past lives, and I know he does a lot of intense rituals, and that's one thing he was channeling in was potentially another past life. He had fragments of different memories that he's seen, so it's pretty interesting to kind of go down that rabbit hole and figure out exactly what's going on.
Yep.
Now, one thing we touched up on off air, and it might be a little controversial, is within your blog post that I brought up earlier, you had mentioned about the differential between ghost hunters and paranormal investigators, which I do 100% agree with. Not to take away from anybody who in the field, we all believe in para-unity, but kind of touch on that, what you feel the differences between those two groups.
Well, one thing I believe is that paranormal investigators are more into analyzing the situation. They go in, not making assumptions, not automatically thinking that it's a ghost, a demon, or they go in and they take base readings. They analyze and observe what's happening. And then they try to find explanations of why these things are happening and try to kind of explain it scientifically first. And then they can make theories and try to disprove or prove their theories based on that. Ghost hunters to me are more thrill seekers. They book themselves in whatever's the scariest hotel or, a scary place. They go in and take videos, but they're really doing it just to, show off that they went somewhere and that something scary happened. But they're not really trying to analyze if there's an explanation to it or explain away or try to solve it. They're more like thrill seekers, like trying to get on like I was saying before, like a roller coaster where they're going in just to see how scared they could get. It's like another version of a haunted house attraction for them. And they really don't try to explain things away or analyze the situation or even make it better in one way or the other. Like, I feel a paranormal investigator not only tries to analyze things, but they try to solve things. They try to help people. They go into somebody's house to figure out what's causing this. If it is something that's a spirit or a ghost or even a demon, then they try to find a way of dispelling this entity for these people to live a normal life and be at peace. A lot of ghost hunters don't do that. They just go, they'll go in and they just run around and take videos and pictures, and they post their ghost images and their orbs and their EVPs, and yet they don't try to find an explanation or even try to prove if it's accurate or not.
So I guess you'd consider yourself an investigator, not a ghost hunter.
Yes. There's moments, don't get me wrong, there are moments I act like a ghost hunter. You know what I mean? Where I just want to go somewhere and I really don't want to work, but I want to experience. So I'll go somewhere that's scary, and and I'll go with minimal equipment, and I try not to, solve anything. It's like there's moments I want to watch a movie and really concentrate on it, and there's times I just want to watch garbage TV. Same thing when it comes to investigations. There's times I want to go in and just enjoy it, and go in and be in a beautiful hotel that's by chance haunted and see if I experience something. But there's always investigative part of me jumps in.
I think a lot of like stigma is attached to the word ghost hunter, which I don't think it should be. I mean, there's different ways to do everything. Like I would think our group is probably a combination of the two, because obviously, Jen's more into the entertainment side, but someone like Mikey's more into the scientific side. So we have ghost hunters, we have paranormal investigators. Like I'd personally say I'm a mix of the both.
Mm-hmm. But at least with Jen, I noticed I love her blogs or not blogs, her posts, because they're always educational. I never knew so much about Appalachia until Jen kept putting these things about Appalachia. But I always find her stuff interesting. Like she'll put something historical. Yes, she's entertaining, but I'm learning from it. And then I add something to my list. I'll be like, oh, this is this place. Let me add that to my Google Maps as a place I want to go to. Because she brings it up. So they serve a purpose. Ghost hunters they do serve a purpose. They bring attention to stuff that we want. But a paranormal investigator's job is more to help solve the situation or explain it, or kind of at least make sure that's real. You know what I mean? Because like I said, another thing that we brought up before the conversation is that the whole idea of thought forms. I think people go in a house and think it's haunted, and they assume that it's haunted, and they already heard the stories about it. And they already, automatically they're playing with their Ouija boards or their EVP, and the EVP could be mumbling garbage, and they'll be like, "Oh, it said the guy's name, it said Harry," and I'm listening to it. I don't hear no Harry. I just hear blah, 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 and they're like swearing to hear Harry. Why? Because they're all in that mindset that this place is haunted, and then there's definitely a ghost named Harry here, so there has to be Harry. And I've had a lot of times where I'm with my group, and we do EVPs, and the rule I put to them in the very beginning was, don't blurt out what you think you heard. Write it. Because once you blurt it out, you've already affected everybody else.
Yeah.
And now they all heard the same thing you heard. But if you write it down and then at the end you look at it and everybody has the same name or the same words, to me that proves that there was something actually said. You know what I mean? If 3 people write in and 3 of them say Mary and one person says Mary, like Merry Christmas, or they hear dog, then you could say, okay, at least 3 people heard Mary. There's a chance that was the word Mary, and it wasn't just a, audio pareidolia type of thing.
I know there's been times with me and Mikey where like he'll hear something completely different than what I hear, and then like if he'll give me what he hears and I'll give him what I hear, and it could sound like either one of those. Like
it's like that blue with the blue, brown, blue, gold, or something like that. There's a whole thing on Instagram where if
the jacket,
the jacket, and if they say the color, then you hear that color only when it repeats the song, right? Or you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why a lot of the times, because I know Sean always makes fun of me. I always like using the spirit box, but I sometimes try to call out not while it's going. I try to ask a question, let it go for a little bit, and then kind of ask the group like, "Hey, okay, what did everybody hear?" Just so we can kind of steer the conversation based on what's coming out. But a lot of the times you're still not accurate. I feel that most of your evidence comes during the analysis after the fact. And that's what I always tell people. We've hosted a couple public investigations in the past, and I've always told everyone, there may be stuff going on. You just don't know about it until you're analyzing the evidence, and like there's disembodied voices that you don't hear. There's stuff coming through the spirit box that you just don't hear live. A lot of the equipment and technique is for analysis, not for live evaluation.
Sometimes you get like crystal clear stuff though.
Sometimes,
yeah. Like one of my best EVPs I ever gotten was at the Cashtown Inn. I was in the AP Hill room, and I think I actually put that on Instagram, where all of a sudden I said, "Is there anybody here?" And it responded clear as day, "Yes, we're here." So it was a direct answer to the question. So, I was like, wow. And I was like, but I didn't tell anybody. So I just wrote, I did the picture, I did the video, and I said, "What do you hear?" And I had the comment boxes say what they heard.
Yeah.
because I wanted to see if they heard the same thing I heard. Because to me, it sounded like a direct reply to the question, is there anybody here? And it said, yes, we're here. And I thought that was the greatest. That was, to me, that was like heaven. And that same weekend, I had an experience where I was in the room and I heard, I got there on a Friday and I was feeling shitty, sick. And I didn't bring any of my equipment upstairs. I went straight upstairs and I went to go to bed. And all of a sudden I heard knocking on the door. I went to check. Nobody was there. Closed the door. Knocking on the door. I went to check again. Nobody's there. The third time I hear knocking at the door and I look underneath and I can see the light and there's nobody standing there. And I was like, I was feeling very sick. And I was like, you know what? Whoever it is, leave me alone, come back later. And all of a sudden I heard like 3 minutes later was steps. But I didn't, to me, it sounded like wood. It sounded like someone with a cane going around the bed. 1, 2, and 3. And then stuff got shuffled on the desk. This is in the AP Hill room at the Cashtown Inn. So I felt things shuffled. So I told the owners the next day, I heard like bangs going around the bed. I told them what I experienced. But then I looked at the journal. I started looking at the journal, and someone in the journal said that they saw a ghost of a soldier walking in with boots going around their bed. And I said, maybe that's what I heard. I'm a city guy. I've never heard boots on a wooden floor. I wouldn't know what it sounded like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that was boots going around the bed that I heard.
Did you have any equipment running at the time
No,
to capture it?
It was on a Friday when I got there and I felt very sick and I just went straight upstairs. I figured, you know what? I'll do everything on Saturday.
That's like I always hate when you have that moment of phenomena and nothing's on. I had probably the greatest footsteps I've ever heard. My wife and I investigated a house close by to us. My uncle flips houses, and they kept finding weird shit in the walls. They found like pictures, old Polaroids that people put in the walls where it looked like almost a cult sitting around a circle, and there was a giant orb in the center. And they kept finding other just really weird pictures, and my aunt saw a shadow figure and all this weird stuff. So we went over and investigated, and the entire upstairs was demoed because they were putting new walls in. And it was after the investigation, I couldn't find my flashlight, so we went into a cubby hole that was on the second floor, and we started hearing just footsteps, clear as day, coming up, and the lights are on. It's me, my cousin, and my wife. Everybody's hearing it. I thought a homeless person broke in, so I grabbed my gun instead of my camera, and it just came up, walked up the stairs, walked to the other side of the floor, and then walked back over. And then just kind of, you almost felt like an energy whoosh as it walked past us. Nothing on camera. I had to grab my freaking gun instead of my.
It's almost
my
like they know.
camcorder.
Like when it's an intelligent haunting, I feel sometimes they mess with people on purpose.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
At the Hinsdale house, we had that situation. We went upstairs. You ever been to Hinsdale house? We were upstairs and we're asking questions. We have all the EVPs. I have my fancy Zoom recorder, the H8. I'm trying to pick up every sound, everything. And we're asking questions, no responses. Spirit box, no responses. Nothing was reacting. We had all these, EMF detectors, energy, motion detectors, nothing. We walked down the stairs, and the moment we hit the kitchen, everything went off upstairs. You would hear everything going off. The motion detectors, the music box. It was like, okay, they waited every time we came downstairs for them to do something. We'll leave like little balls that, the little cat balls.
Cat balls,
and you could see, if you go to the living room, since you're aware, the living room, there's like a grate. And you can see the light showing that the balls are being lit upstairs.
Yeah.
Nobody's upstairs. And I'm like, and then you will go upstairs and then nothing was lit. No one was reacting. And I'm like, it was like they knew and they were playing with us.
That's like when we all went outside to the Giving Tree, and Randall ran a video camera in while we were gone. And on the camera, it looks like some hand comes around in front of the camera when no one was in the house.
Oh, yeah, it was wild. It was like almost like a finger or something going up like this, and then it just disappeared.
We had one of the nights like around 2 something in the morning, I think it was. I was the only one that had a camera in the kitchen, but we had cameras everywhere, and I had one of these motion active, sound activated cameras in the kitchen. Also, we heard something like land loud, like a pop, like a real hard metal pop. And my camera went crazy and went like this, searching. And then it stopped and it zoomed in like it saw something, but we couldn't see nothing on the camera. And then it turned like it was following something. It was tracking something. But there was nothing on the camera you could see it tracking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, I was lucky I had that one camera that picked up, but it didn't pick up what made the noise. It picked up like after the noise happened, it activated the camera to like zoom into where the noise was and start tracking.
Yeah.
But we didn't catch anything. And I'm like, and it was freezing. I was in a Hinsdale house. It was freezing. It was January 15th, 2021. I still remember the date because my body was frozen.
Yeah. Oh, we were in the same boat. I forget, what was it, December when we went, Sean?
No, I thought it was January. I think actually,
Yeah.
January, February, maybe.
Yeah, it was freezing. I wanted to walk on the pond. I actually bought a flotation device. My game plan was in a fishing line. I was gonna put my digital voice recorder in a plastic container that's waterproof, attach it to a raft, and put it in the middle of the pond and ask questions. But then when we got there, the pond was frozen. So I was like, I gotta walk on that. My wife's like, you're not walking on a newly
You'll be the next
frozen
ghost
pond.
story.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard they just added a kayak to it now.
Yeah.
You can go fishing and swimming in that too. In the whole pond.
Definitely.
See, but do you think I really want to be like? There's supposed to be a legend of a woman in the lake, right, or in the pond.
Yeah.
And that pond's, is not that close to the property. I wouldn't want to see something there, and me trying to get back. And
yeah, we actually had a pretty cool case because I'm assuming you read part of the book, or at least what's been online about the Hinsdale house. And the woman in the lake was on the far side of the pond and was seen dancing around with her face changing. And we, even though it was freezing cold, I think it was Randall, Sean, my wife, and I went out there, and I had a REM pod set up, and I just asked, I was like, if the woman's here, can you dance for us? We heard you like to dance on this side of the pond. And then the REM pod started going crazy, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. But I had a body cam set up on a tree up by the Giving Tree, and I have not analyzed it yet. I don't know if my body cam may have even broken down because it was frozen solid, but I'd like to see if we got any cryptid activity or anything out there, because I know they have the puckwudgies apparently.
Which I read about after the fact.
Really?
Yeah. But I went to the Giving Tree and I dropped off cigars because you're supposed to bring something to the Giving Tree. And then, to appease the Native Americans that lived on the land. And so I did that hoping to see ghosts.
Didn't work out. No. We had some activity. I mean, at one point, we were running the spirit box where the exorcism had happened, the structural exorcism. And I just asked if I could talk to the house. And I think it said here or something like that. And I said, I want to congratulate you for surviving the exorcism. I just want to make sure we're communicating with the house. And it said, yeah, through the spirit box. I was like, that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, we had Randall using tarot cards too. We got some interesting things.
Yeah.
With that too.
Yeah. And those ones are, I mean, that's just like dowsing rods. I'm not sure how much is coincidence and how much is legitimate when it comes to those types of tools. What do you think, Raul?
With dowsing rods, I've been kind of for example, the Cashtown Inn, the guy in the Cashtown Inn, he uses dowsing rods to find water lines to put, and they use also dowsing rods to find like electrical lines sometimes. He says workers use it to try to identify when there's a water line and when there's an electrical line, and they've been very accurate. Like they've been able to dig wells with almost like an 80%, 90% accuracy based on these dowsing rods.
Yeah.
So there has to be. So I think it has to do with energy. Like a lot of times, these dowsing rods are copper or they have some sort of metal, and just like magnetism, maybe indirectly it's being affected. You know what I mean? And they hold these dowsing rods, and it may be affected by the fact that water. A lot of hauntings tend to happen around water, train tracks, certain type of minerals and rocks, and I think that's the same thing with these dowsing rods. They are very perceptive for certain things like water, electricity, quartz, because of the fact that they're made out of metal. Your own body acts like an antenna to amplify it. You guys ever done the thing where you're trying to find your car and you press and it doesn't work, but then you put it on the top of your head and you press it?
I always heard the chin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it works. You know why it works? Because your body becomes a giant antenna at that point.
Oh, wow.
Your skull. So the same thing with dowsing rods. Maybe dowsing rods is making your body more perceptive and more accurate to find it. And you're doing either you're doing micro movements that you're not aware of, or the dowsing rods themselves, because of the properties they're made of, are reacting to the pop. So I kind of believe in dowsing rods. I actually find dowsing rods to me more believable than some of the other stuff that people have used in the past. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on the person who's using them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one way to kind of eliminate bias. We haven't had a chance to try it, but I brought it up one time when we were investigating Greenville Manor because there was a gentleman using dowsing rods. You know what the Estes method is with the spirit box and the headphones. Maybe doing that, but then also having the dowsing rods. Just I feel that the bias aspect of dowsing rods is the person is able to hear the questions, and they may do those micro movements to answer based on what they know about the location. So I think if there's a way to eliminate them hearing what the questions are, but still having the ability to use the rods, I think that's the only way that you can kind of eliminate that bias.
And when it comes to even finding water, having them not be able, even trying that, blindfold them and have them just walk, because people do read micro expressions on other people. So if one person knows where that water line is, you might be picking up on the way they're looking or they're reacting, and you might, oh, okay, now I know it's this way. You know what I mean? Because everybody reads like these mentalists, like another thing that's gonna be controversial is I believe certain people are sensitive, certain people are psychics, but I don't think everybody's a psychic that claims to be a psychic. I think 80% of them are mentalists. They read your body language, they look at your little micro expressions as you're like, you have everybody has a relative that passed away 2 or 3 years ago. Chances are there's a good chance. I had one psychic, I don't want to say their name, that went into a bar, and it was me and a bunch of, all of us were big fat guys standing around the bar. And she walked up to the bar and she says, I sense that one of you have a bad knee, has a knee problem. What are the chances that a bunch of fat guys around the bar have a knee problem?
You should be like, no, we all work out our legs. We're good.
Yeah. So, and the funny thing is that I did have a knee problem. I was actually getting therapy for my knee, but I stayed quiet. Yeah. Because I said, if she's really a psychic, she'll
pick
be
which
able to
one.
say it's, yeah. So one guy, he fell for the bait, and he's like, oh, I have a knee problem. So he fell for the bait. And that's what they do. They work the crowds a lot of times and go, I send someone who has a relative that with the letter C that just passed away. You do a crowd, chances are somebody with the letter C passed away, and somebody's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, actually, a psychic is someone that can actually go in and be accurate 100%, not know anything, not like the Dead Files. I love the Dead Files for that reason.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite paranormal shows. I don't really watch too many, but that's one that I do respect. But the psychic thing's funny. I actually, we have a friend, Robbie, who does Out of the Blank podcast. And it's almost like a Rogan-esque type of podcast where he just has guests of varying backgrounds. And one of the guests was a psychic debunker. He actually had 2 members of their team. And they have a team where they do it long-term debunking too. They do social media profiles, fake ones, for like 2 years. And they'll post like different things like, oh, my brother died and stuff like this. And then they'll sign up for a psychic event, and they act as the person on the fake account too. And so they'll sign up through their social media for this event, and then the psychic will pick up on things that they've posted on there. And that's a way that they call out these con artists that have these big shows. And she wouldn't name names, but she said enough that I know one of the psychics that they did this to. And it is a big name in our field. So it's kind of interesting. It's definitely worth a watch. It was probably, I think he interviewed, I don't know if they were a couple, but it was a gentleman and a female from the team. It was probably about a year ago. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty interesting thing to do. And I guess they've been doing it for 20 to 30 years.
What's the name of the show again?
It's Out of the Blank podcast. I'm actually wearing the shirt. Oh. But yeah, it's that episode was or 2 episodes were pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah, I love that stuff. That reminds me of back in the day we had Amazing Randy. That was a guy. Amazing Randy used to go around proving these psychics. When he had that one guy who claimed that he could move stuff, he put styrofoam in front of the objects to see if the styrofoam moved around.
Yeah.
So that's to me, going back to our very original thing. That's what the difference is with a paranormal investigator. We don't take things for just, because someone says it's that way, it has to be that way. We try to logically think, okay, is there another means of getting the same information, another means of kind of, of things happening that may not be paranormal? Because like I said, people, there's a lot of abilities people have indirectly. Like, there people say, oh, my dogs approach me when I'm sad. Doesn't mean the dog's psychic. It means that the dogs have studied you so long from staring at you. They know your emotions. They know, and they react to it. They already pick up from your body how you react. Same thing with psychics. They know if they're going the right way. There's this one guy who's great, Darren Brown. Have you guys ever heard of him, Darren Brown? He does a lot of stuff you have to watch on Netflix. He's able to trick people and hypnotize them into doing stuff that they know. He's able to give out pieces of paper, which I would love to learn that trick. He gives out pieces of paper and people think they're $20 bills and give him change for it. So he shows you all these tricks. And he actually, he said he had somebody put in on an envelope a random object based on what they want, something that they wanted, and it had to be as random as possible and put it in an envelope. And by the end of the show, he was able to predict exactly what they put in there. And it was because he was able to, by little tricks, as he talks to them, he starts picking up the little cues and figuring out what colors they like and what they did. And and he was able to figure out, and he writes this great book about mentalist people and how they trick people. How they put people on lines. A lot of times these events have people on the line, and there's people in the line whose job is to listen to the conversations. As one lady's telling another lady, oh, I wish I could make contact with my Aunt Betsy who passed away. Oh, guess what? Coincidentally, someone made contact with your Aunt Betsy and they're telling the psychic now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they show you how a lot of these tricks are done. And in our field, if we get rid of all the charlatans and all the people over exaggerate things, that's another thing that drives me crazy. Without mentioning names, you guys already know who this is. There's shows out there that you have so-called. I've been doing this for 5 to 6 years about. And when I hear something in a room, I run towards it. Yeah. Right. But then you have these shows of these so-called ghost hunters or experts or whatever, and they hear something, they're screaming like little girls and running away, and they're like, oh, or one guy gets possessed every other show. I think that's
Sean's boy.
Yeah. So those are people that are giving a bad name. Yes, they're entertaining, and I look at them as entertainment.
Yeah.
Do I look at them as real investigators? No. They may have started off on the good path, and somewhere along the line, money deterred them. These are people that started off doing private investigations for people, helping them with problems in their home, and now the only thing they investigate are the most famous haunted places in the world, and they no longer help people. So that's where they stray, and I that's kind of upsetting. That I'm hoping I never become Hollywood, where one day all of a sudden I just want to do famous things. Yes, it's great to do great investigations and famous things, but at the same time, every once in a while you should do something to help people that have their problems.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I always bring this up. I won't say what show it is either, but they were investigating I think it was a bourbon facility in Kentucky, and they during the tour, the owner of the facility said, well, there's bobcats out here. You got to be careful of the bobcats. And one of them was using one of the thermal cameras that pick up body temperature. Mm-hmm. And he goes, oh my God, there's a cat. And then it cuts the commercial. And when it came back from commercial, it's like, oh, it's just the house kitty. And I'm like, I am never watching this show ever again.
I know the episode you're talking
What's that?
Because I know the episode you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I just can't watch it. And I always tell people I don't really watch the paranormal shows. I'll watch some things on YouTube. I like Paranormal Quest. I'll watch them from time to time. The only time I really watch anything is if we're going to a big location. I may just watch an episode beforehand just to get the history of the location. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, I mean, I like going into places kind of blind as well.
I like to go blind as much as I could, but like the same thing. If the place is too big, then I try to go in to try to hone down what rooms are the best to go to.
Yeah, and I don't even like doing that either. I kind of like to have the investigation take me to where we're gonna go. Because I feel like if you look at the hot spots out of a location, you may miss out on a potential hotspot given the time and the elements that hotspot may not be hot. It might be down the hallway. So I think
True.
that's one thing that gets eliminated. Like, for example, we went to Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and we were on the tour, and for some reason that we're passing, I don't really claim to have any abilities. I just say I just have maximum effort. That's about it. But we're going past this room, and I'm like, man, that place looks like murder. And the tour guide was like, well, I wasn't going to say anything about it, but that used to be a nursing facility, and someone was doing a spirit box session there last week and got scratched. And I'm like, I got to go in there. Unfortunately, we called our documentary Discombobulated in the Dark because I don't know. We just could not get our bearings on where we're at. And have you ever investigated Trans Allegheny?
No, I would love to. The only thing I've done is Penhurst.
Oh, okay.
I would love to do Trans Allegheny because I heard it's supposed to be a great place to do.
It is great. It's just it is pretty expensive. And the building you only have access to the Kirkbride building, but it's big enough that it doesn't matter.
You can do the medical too now, but it's a separate investigation.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Is that
the medical building didn't seem as big as the Kirkbride building.
Well, that's where the morgue and that is, though, too.
Yeah,
medical building. And if you do like their normal nighttime tour, they take you over there because I've been in that building before too.
Yeah. I'd like to do the one behind it where they had the more extreme patients. But I think the building's still in disarray, so they don't allow investigators in unless you're famous.
I know. To me, it's a shame that they get so expensive because they didn't get. There's places I haven't gone to simply because I know I can't afford to go there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not. And there are some places I haven't gone to because they're just far. But I'm still planning to go there. Like I have a list of places I would love to hit in Texas, but I have to plan it ahead. I could try to hit as many as I could in a 1 week period and come back home.
So, what's the closest location to where you live?
We're in Jersey. We don't have very much in Jersey. The closest, like I said, is Gettysburg. I go to Gettysburg all the time.
You do anything with the Pine Barrens or anything?
Yeah, but what's in the Pine? I went camping when I was a kid in Boy Scouts, but I didn't even know the story about so I didn't experience anything.
Okay.
And and the fact that the Pine Barrens is a legend about the New Jersey Devil or even the Blair Witch is a made up story. It never really happened. But the whole Jersey Devil thing, and there's supposedly Bigfoots down in the Pine Barrens.
Okay.
According to rumors. I actually went cabin camping, but that's to me it's what else? There's one place I would love to be able to go to. There's a place called Day Mansion, DEY, in Wayne, New Jersey. Okay. It's where Anthony Wayne, who was one of the generals for George Washington, actually lived. And it's like an original state and everything, but they won't let nobody investigate it. People have asked them.
Well, it's funny that Mike, you remember Matt Anthony's? Used to be over in Bellevue. It was a restaurant that they tore down, and it was off of General Wayne, and it was supposed to be haunted, but they tore that building down. But it used to be called Matt Anthony's.
They used to have I think it was called Greystone, a mental facility in Cedar Grove that got torn down. That was supposed to have been a great haunted place, and that got torn down. I remember when I was a kid, I used to go up by Garrett Mountain. They have a castle, Lambert Castle, and I used to go up there hoping that there was something that I would see something. But there's not many in Jersey. I mean, like I said, there's more. I go to Pennsylvania. I've gone to upstate New York. I've gone. One time, my wife had a trip for work to Panama, and the first thing I did was start looking up all the haunted places in Panama.
Yeah.
And the same thing. Like I could travel anywhere. Like it was funny because when my son had choices of colleges to go to, one of them was Gettysburg, and he accepted Gettysburg. And I was more happy the fact that he was going to Gettysburg for me to be able to visit more often and use him as an excuse than what college he picked.
Yeah, that's funny. That's like in Western PA. We have a lot of outdoor locations and a lot of, the local urban legend locations, but outside of Hillview and Greenville Manor, which unfortunately closed recently, we're usually going to Ohio at least, or sometimes West Virginia just to find a place because
there's places in like Pittsburgh and that, but the thing is trying to get into them, like between historical societies and all that type of stuff, it's hard to get into a lot of those locations.
Although there is one place that's opening up that wasn't ever investigated before that I just found out from Jen Kalushi. It's called the Ritz Theater. There's a Ritz Theater in down South Jersey, right by. It's not far from Philadelphia at all.
Okay.
and it's supposed to be haunted. They did investigations there and picked up EVP, picked up images, and they're finally opening it up for them to investigate for the first time. So now that that might be a place I'm going to be hitting. I was invited to go there next November, and then 2 weeks after the Gettysburg, I'm going to be doing Hell House, which
Okay.
is another place.
Yeah.
But Hell House is actually Pennsylvania, I think, right?
Yeah. They run like a haunted house out of there too, right?
Yeah, that's the one thing that makes me iffy about how legit is it when they're running haunted houses, during the regular part of the year. You know what I mean? And also it was used to make 3 movies, right? They use the same location to make Hell House 1, 2, and 3. So part of me is like, is it really haunted? Or is it just that a thought form that everybody's been watching these movies, everybody thinks that there's haunted, so they've created things that are happening during the off season of entities that are somehow being attracted to the fear that's being generated.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of locations, like I know Penhurst, Trans-Allegheny, Eastern State, even Scare House, like all was supposed to be really haunted, and they were all haunted attractions too. So I definitely think that type of energy can bring that in for sure.
Yeah, that's why you always have a ghost bait, right? It's always going to bring one person that's like scared of everything.
Yeah. Just to feed them. It's better than an EM pump.
That's why I tell people. I tell people a lot of times the ghosts, going back to energy. They're not eating food. They're no longer using substance, so they have to use energy to maintain their energy form. It's like a battery draining a little bit from the out. So that's when you feel a cold spot, it's taking energy from you. When you feel headaches, it's taking your EMF from your brain. You know what I mean? I've actually one time I was at the Gettysburg Hotel in room 311, which is it's haunted. I had a couple experiences there, and I walked in the room and I started getting a real bad headache. And I had one of these lamb's hats. I don't even have it with me here, but it's a lamb hat that has like a shielding inside of it. And I put it on, and the headache went away instantly. Now, was it my brain? Was it a placebo effect that I knew I put this hat on and the headache was going to go away, or was it really blocking something?
Well, that's I don't know if Tommy's still watching. Tommy Gill was watching. He was one of the guys that said, "Hey guys," but we were at Octagon House's property, and the first night I was there, and I don't get like this. I had a massive headache the whole time I was there that first night. And I wonder if that's something to do with the location,
And that's what I think. I think they actually do. And I've had instances where I take equipment fully 100% charge. I'm like a nut. I charge everything. I make sure everything's 100% charged. And I've had equipment that I bring into a room and the camera's battery just drains in a matter of minutes. I'm like, what's up with it? I just charge this battery 100% and it drains. And then you have instances where you go somewhere and the battery lasts you the whole weekend because nothing's draining in. It's working fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I know at Trans-Allegheny, I had a lot of battery drain. At one point, I was doing a solo investigation in one of the isolation chambers, and my camera just died probably after 10 minutes, and it was a fully charged battery. And I just had the spirit box running, and then some of our former teammates came in to get me, and I was just like, "Hey, did you drain my battery?" And through the spirit box, clear as day, it said, "Yes, that was me."
Okay. Sometimes I'm tempted just to get like a Faraday cloth because I have Faraday cloth and Faraday tape and put it around the cameras to see if they can't mess with them. That's a way to protect them.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I know that I had the Faraday pouch, but I feel like because I always use the this S box from Ghost Stop.
Yeah.
And I felt the Faraday pouch made it so you couldn't hear as well because it kind of blocked out the noise a little bit. So I don't typically use it. Just because I that's the reason I like the S box so much is because it's the loudest out of all the spirit boxes, I feel, and you don't need an external
spirit boxes.
What's that?
The Mikey Bowser of spirit boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm a loud guy. I need a loud spirit box.
It's nice and simple. It doesn't get as complicated. Like the SB11 has too many buttons on it.
Yeah.
The S box is very simple. But then I get jealous of people that have like the geo ports that it's like super clear. Like you don't even hear static. You hear hello. You hear clear words. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, like when you watch what's a Huff, Stephen Huff. He has boxes that like have clear words. Like there's no static. You're not picking up multiple stations from anywhere else. But I can't afford, $3,000.
Yeah, I kind of question some of his stuff too. I won't say anything bad. I've seen videos of some of his stuff, but yeah, I agree. A lot of the geoports are pretty cool.
Yep. And I'm tempted to I'm more into using analog old stuff like a S box or something because I'm always wondering, even though I've had great things happen with some of the apps. I'm always wondering, did a programmer program that app that when it hears a certain word, it responds a certain way? Because they could do that. Yeah, I mean, they could easily program it that, it responds every certain amount of time with certain words.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why I always make fun of Sean, and he busts me on the spirit box. I always bust him on the phone apps. I mean, we've had some really crazy stuff come through on phone apps, but at the same time, it's like I can talk about, like, my coworker's obsessed with reality TV shows, and he always talks about the show The Challenge, which I've never watched in my entire life. But he'll talk about it and my phone will hear it. And then I'll go on Google and I'll have ads for The Challenge or on Facebook. And I'm like, why, of all the things, why does it have to be this shitty TV show?
Yeah, everything. You're constantly being listened to. Me being in the tech industry, I know for a fact your phone constantly listens to you. Alexa constantly listens to you. I just said her name, she lit up. But they constantly listen to you. They've actually used recordings from these Alexa things to find people guilty of murder. Because what it does is, for it to hear its name, it has to constantly be recording.
Yeah.
So it's constantly recording and keeping a database of what you're saying. So if you murder someone in the last 2 hours, chances are it's been caught on a recording right now.
Yeah. So what do you think of the phone apps?
I find them fun. I mean, I kind of hope that they're really true. I kind of like them. I lean towards them because I got good stuff. Like GhostTube, I use Necromonicon sometimes. I use the Huff made an app called the Miracle app.
Yeah.
But the way the Miracle app supposedly work, which kind of makes it interesting, was it doesn't have complete words in it. It just has syllables. So if you hear a complete word, that means something intelligent put the syllables together to make a word, supposedly. Now, I can't prove if they're actually doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I've had, like I said, the GhostTube was the one I had at that Cashtown Inn that responded perfectly. Now, would I be upset if I found out later on that was probably a built-in response? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like if somebody says, is there anybody here? And the built-in response is, yes, we are. Then I'll be kind of pissed.
Yeah.
We won't find out until someone, reveals it or something.
We had a pretty cool one at Greenville Manor. If you want to talk about that one, Sean, I don't know what app you were using.
The one up in the attic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were using Spirit Talker, which actually I was kind of going back to how we were talking about the dowsing rods and that, because I think this was the same time that was going on up in the attic. We were using dowsing rods, we were using the Spirit Talker. Anything that coincides with anything, I think, is always, pretty good evidence. If it's 2 or 3 objects coming through, then that's always a good idea what you're getting. But anyway, what he's talking about is we had an app running, and first it said infant, then it said Leo, and that's Mikey's son's name is Leo. So, and we were with Mikey's family too, because we were doing the public. So Mikey wasn't with us; he was downstairs, but I was with his family members. So it said infant and Leo, and then I got on the walkie-talkie to call Mikey, and was like, "You should come up here," like it's talking about Leo, and it said what, father? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was father.
I was on the walkie-talkie with him. It said father. So like all 3 of those back to back. Like, how would it know that?
And that's what matters to me. Is the answers going along with the scenario? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes with Spirit Talker, I've used Spirit Talker, and sometimes it gives me stupid answers like, "Am I dead?" It keeps repeating.
Yeah.
"Am I buried here?" It's like it goes into a loop. So yes, but then if you get an answer, like I've gotten on a spirit box one time, it said my name, Raul, which is not a common name.
Yeah.
And that was all, and everybody in the room was listening to it, and it said Raul, and they all turned and looked at me, and it was like, and to me, that's when you made it, is when the spirits know you by name.
Oh yeah.
So when they start saying your name, but a lot of times I go to these apps and they repeat certain things, but if they say an answer to the correct question, then I'm more apt to believe it's used, because they have a finite database. They tell you some of these things only have 30,000 words, 50,000 words, whatever. So it only has things to pick from. But as long as what it's picking from goes along with the question, then it's great. But I've seen SD methods from some of these people on the shows, and it looks like they're working as a team to try to make it look like it fits when it doesn't. So they'll be like, lost. Oh, so you're feeling lost, you're saying. And the person's blurting out words, and the person over here is like his voice will act, trying to complete a sentence,
Yeah.
and making up when it's not. I wanted to say, okay, what is your name? And you give me a name. How old are you? And you give me a number. Those are things that make more sense than when it's just saying, random words and you're trying to make it fit your narrative.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Off the word bank or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have an Ovilus. It's only supposed to say a certain amount of words or whatever. Well, when we were down in Dead Man's Hollow, it said McKeesport, which is the name of the town. Like, why? There's no way that'd be programmed in that,
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the new, there's, not new, but there a lot of people are using just white noise. That's it. They're doing the whole Staticom method. You've heard of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got people like Ron and Lourdes doing that. I read a paper the other day by some guy who used something called scalar waves, where you're trying to use just sound or waves of sound to produce words, and where there's no syllables or there's no letters, there's no words. What do you guys think about that? Like, I find that more credible when you're just using white noise as a input and it's coming out with words.
Yeah, I like that. My son has one of those boxes to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It generates white noise. And I actually bought an extra one just to try that method. I bought it a couple years ago. I haven't been able to bring it out because I think we gave it to my mom because she babysits him when we go on investigations. So once he's old enough to not need it anymore, I definitely plan on using it. I think that it's credible. I mean, obviously, if there is no possibility of radio interference and radio bleed, then and you hear a voice, there's no other possibility that outside of some kind of paranormal phenomena.
Correct. Because scientifically it's sound, because just like certain colors have all the other colors put in it. So you're able to pull out colors from that. Like I think black has all of them.
Yeah.
White is same thing with white noise. White noise has all the levels of sound going in it. So you're able to pull out differentiating sounds from white noise if you filter it correctly. So a lot of times people use a white noise, but then what happens is, I don't know if they create that what they want, their final goal, because when they take the white noise and record something, then they run it through these filters that supposedly picks up words when they slow it down, when they speed it up. So are they kind of creating the illusion, because they're messing around with the white noise that's able to, or is there actually a word hidden in the white noise?
That's kind of like with editing photos and that too. You crop it and then you zoom in and all pixelate it and everything else, and then it ends up showing a face, but you had to do all this shit just to get to that place,
Yeah. I agree. I think if it's unmanipulated white noise and then you get an EVP through that, then yeah, that's legit. If you are doing that level of editing to try to decipher something, then it's probably noise pareidolia, and you're just
a lot of these people that are doing the white noise are using special software that over edits and analyzes, and I think you're eventually going to find words because you're over filtering it, and otherwise it wouldn't have came out naturally.
Yeah,
but they won't give me the software. I've tried to get it just for that reason, because the paranormal investigator part of me wants to see, how is this working?
Yeah,
what is it doing? How is it messing around with the white noise? Because I mean, like right now, have you ever listened to your baby's monitor and hope to see if you hear a word coming out of it? Coincidentally,
I swear sometimes I do hear stuff, but it could be just I am very tired. But I've had activity in my house before, and my wife banned me from doing any more investigating because we've had some pretty crazy stuff happen here. Like we'd be in the basement, we'd hear people running upstairs, and it's just me, her, and our cats down here in the basement, and then vice versa. We'd be upstairs and hear stuff. And at one point, I have a gym in my basement, and I was working out, and I looked down, and I saw a wet footprint. Like it looked like a child's footprint just form, and the stain is still there. So I don't even know what fluid it was because the stain's still visible.
Oh, wow.
So we've had some activity. I did spirit box session. We've got a lot of names and intelligent responses. The first time I did one, I was working from home during the pandemic, and I kept hearing stuff just moving around the basement when I was up in the living room. And I was like, all right, on my lunch break, I'm going to go down there and do some weird shit and see what I get. And yeah, I did get some really intelligent responses from my boy, Tony. Yeah, he follows us from time to time during investigations.
I've been trying to get an attachment
I unfortunately got one.
I know. I bought quote unquote haunted dolls that are not haunted. And
Yeah.
then, and then I would test people out. I've had people, tell me it's haunted, and they tell me the name of the spirit, and each person gives me a different name. So, it's interesting, you know what I mean? And I just go
Yeah.
along with them. I give them, on purpose, body language that says yes or body language that says no, just to see if they go down that path.
Yeah.
I've attended a lot of stuff. Some stuff I'm not, some stuff is like I've done table tipping, which is like to me was the old version of Ouija boards before Ouija boards came around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah.
And and then you get people get answers from that, but it's going along the same lines as dowsing rods and Ouija boards. Are the people moving it? Is it micro movements? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things like
And
that.
I think it's just stamina when it comes to table tipping too. Because some people, like we were doing it with a woman who didn't seem like she she had too much muscle on her, and it seemed like that was kind of leaning in her direction from time to time
That's the
too.
same lady that was assaulted in the basement too, or whatever.
Yeah, allegedly. We have a video on our YouTube page where we were doing a spirit box session, and like out of nowhere she just flies backwards into this table.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, that's my alarm system.
Okay. But yeah,
anybody opens a door in the house, I'm ghost proof. If a ghost opens a door, I'll know.
Yeah.
Like
we tried to analyze to see if there's any like pull movement on her shirt or anything. It did kind of look like on her hoodie, like it was pulled up a little bit. But yeah,
but even those things you try to discount. Like I've watched videos on YouTube where there was one guy that was messing around with ghosts in a cemetery, and there's a point where it looked like something grabbed him and flung him, and you see his shirt lift up and get pulled. But I'm part of me saying, did they have a line tied to it? You don't know the exact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I know they, in this case, it was in a basement at an antique store. Like we didn't have a line tied to her or anything. That's why I was trying to kind of see, like, did she just fall back into it, or was she pulled it anyway?
Or did she do it on her? I mean, people are good. It's like mimes. Mimes can make themselves look like they're falling. You ever seen that one video where the guy gets dragged across the gym floor by some ghost?
Yeah.
Some ghost grabs him and drags his whole body against the gym floor. But you have people that could fake the same drag. And make it look like they're being dragged when they're not.
Oh yeah. I mean, in this case, the lady, if she did fake it, she went all in, because she went back first right into a corner of a table. I was like, damn.
See, but that's the thing. I always lean towards being skeptical, because when something is like, you assume the worst for like that everything. If it is better than that, then you'll be happily satisfied with it.
For sure.
So I always assume the worst. I always assume, because I don't want to be the other way around where I think, oh my God, this is great, and I televise it, not televise it, but put it on YouTube and support it, and also I find out it's a fake. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you do have to debunk things. That's like one of our. It was my first like official investigation at a location. We did Anchorage Mansion a couple years back, and we were in the I think it was the 3rd floor. And they say that there's children on there, and they'll move stuff if you give them change. So we kept leaning over and putting change on the one part of the floor, and the rocking chair would move every time we put the change down. I'm like, holy shit. And then eventually I looked down and I noticed anytime I leaned down to put the change on there,
a board or something. Right?
I'd hit the floorboard, and I noticed every time my foot hit the floorboard, it kicked the other end of the floorboard into the rocking chair. And I was like, damn it. But at least you had got it,
It's like that famous story about the cars that go over the train tracks, and the spirit of these kids push the car over the train tracks.
Yeah.
But they're actually what they're called magnetic hills that have the illusion that they're upright, but they're actually the other way around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have one in North Park, Gravity Hill.
Yeah. We have one in Jersey, in New Milford, a Gravity Hill, where people, and the cops parked there because people kept parking their cars just to see them drift. Yeah. Because it's an illusion, it's like those gravity spots in Nevada, these houses that you could walk into and you look like you're walking upside down, but you really walk up.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing. There's natural places where the hills look like they're going up, but they're actually going down. So you park your car and it looks like it's being pushed up a hill. And people were like, oh, but you put powder in the back of the car and you see fingerprints. You know what happens? You put powder in the back of any car, any oil residue that's been on the back of that car is going to show up.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not any little kids pushing in and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah.
But those are things I used to watch when I was small, and I used to be like, oh wow, what were those shows? Ripley's Believe It or Not, or
Yeah.
Unsolved
Yeah.
Mysteries, or all these things. I used to love watching those shows and try to figure out how does that happen, like spontaneous combustion and things like that. How does that happen? You know what I mean?
That's like we like I said earlier in Western PA, we don't have too many locations outside of like Hillview Manor and formerly Greenville Manor. So we did a lot of local places, like outdoor ones, and they always have these urban legends attached to them. And we did my wife and I did Blue Mist Trail. That was one of our first investigations in North Park. And they have a witch's house, which is like a foundation that was knocked over. There's all kinds of different stuff on this trail. I think there's definitely energy there, but I did a lot of research and wrote a article on our blog about it. And I interviewed a gentleman that's written books on urban legends, and he said a lot of the times these urban legends they'll transfer from location to location, and they're really based on the pop culture and different aspects of the given time. So they had the witch's house. It was an actual house. I did a lot of research to try to figure out who lived there, and I could not find anything. But I don't think it was a witch. I think they just called it the witch's house from the era of the Satanic Panic. That's when that story kind of came up. There was a hanging tree. The gentleman I interviewed from one of the local colleges said he believes that theory came out in the 80s. I think there was a race riot in Pittsburgh. And that kind of went there, and then also went to other locations in the area that have urban legend stories behind them.
Yeah, even Dead Man's Hollow, I think, is supposed to have a hanging tree too.
Yeah, and then also the Green Man Tunnel that we have locally was based. It's in South Park, is the Green Man Tunnel, but the actual Green Man, which had his face burn off and everything, lived in Beaver, a completely different location. So it's like the the stories just go to location.
They're common tropes. I think they call them tropes.
Yeah.
They tend to exist. Like in every state, there's a woman who drowned her kids. And
or the lady in white. Too.
Lady in white. Yep.
Lady in white. Or a bride whose husband died on the day she was supposed to get married, and she's forever walking down. Or a hitchhiker.
Yeah, a lady threw her kid off the bridge or whatever.
Yeah. And every single state, there's one.
So have you investigated places like that?
Yeah, I've gone to. There's a road called Ann's Road in Totowa, but it has a legend because it's so dark, and it has a cemetery on one side, and Barnum and Bailey Circus, back in the day when they had the little people. I'm trying to be correct.
Yes.
The little people, they actually build these little houses that fit those little people.
We have actually a story about that right in Bridgeville, which is the neighborhood over for me, where the same story about the little people.
They have one on Blue Mist Trail too in North Park. There's they call it the M word farm.
Oh, there's other ones. We have the Jackson Whites. That's another story that's similar to that, by what you're saying around.
Yeah.
Where, there's all these same stories. Like this one road, Annie's Road. If you go further down on the left, there's this group of people that are like inbreds that come out running and chase you if you're there too long.
Yep.
Or, there's all these stories that. So I've gone Annie's Road. I used to take kids, like my nieces, just to scare them. Let's go to Annie's Road, and one would start crying, and the other one would be all excited. Totally different personalities.
Yeah.
I've heard of that tunnel that he's talking about there.
Now, do you feel because obviously when you investigate these places, there are responses and there are energy at a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go into an investigation eliminating the bias of the lore to try to really get where that energy originates?
I try to stay scientific and try to stick to what I normally do.
Yeah. So
I don't try to lean my investigation towards the lore. I try to do my basics, and if it fits my basics, fine. Like I just went, my wife and I, we went to up by Montreal. So we stopped in Vermont. We stopped in upstate New York. So I stopped in upstate New York. I had to go to White Hill because that's Bigfoot land. Then I stopped in Vermont and Stowe, Vermont. So one night while we were in Vermont, we were staying at Airbnb. I drove 2 hours down to a place called Emily's Bridge. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, Emily's Bridge. It's supposed to be haunted. It's a little wooden covered bridge. You barely could fit one car through it. It's right over a brook, like a little river. and it's supposed to be super haunted. And people say like she appears if you're there between the hours of 12 and 3 a.m. She's supposed to appear. So I went in. First day I went there, I looked around and I couldn't see where I would park my car, and it's a residential area, so I felt kind of weird. The second day we were there for 3 days in Vermont. So the second day I went back again, and I found an area where I could park my car, and I went back and I set up my equipment. I took pictures with the FLIR camera. I have a FLIR, which is a heat thing.
Mhm.
I took pictures with a Phasm camera, with one of those cameras that take the different wavelengths. I did infrared. I did ultraviolet light. I took a bunch of pictures. Then I did my regular recordings. I talked loud, asked the basic questions, EVPs. I did all that. I also recorded just for ambient sound. And there's like a brook. So the brook, to me, a lot of people may hear voices, maybe the brook creating the equivalent of white noise, which then people pick up as a voice, a name. You know what I mean? There's an explanation for a lot of things. The fact that it's in an isolated area, like there's people that live up there, but the actual area has no lights. It's super dark. Like I had to use my FLIR camera to be able to really see around because it was so dark.
Oh, that's wild.
So, these are things I take all the pictures. I analyze the pictures afterwards. I try not to analyze anything at the moment. I wait until I go back and I start listening to all the EVPs again, which is the tedious part of investigating though.
Yep.
Listen to each EVP, look at each picture. Then, try to, if something looks suspicious, try to break it down and isolate it. I use Audacity to analyze most of my EVPs. So I go in and I stretch it. I see, does it sound the same? I use an app called Otter, which is a transcribe app. And if I think I hear something and the transcribe app doesn't transcribe it with that word, then I say it's pareidolia. I'm not really hearing the word, because this transcribe app picks up everything. Like I've used this app when I'm work and I'm talking to people from India with super deep accents and people from England, and it's transcribing everything. It's picking up their words or accents and everything. So if I hear something on an
I'm gonna have to check that out.
yeah, it's called Otter, Otter.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't pick it up there, then I say, you know what? Chances are it's just noise that I'm picking up and thinking.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
But like I found nothing at Emily's Bridge. Was I upset in a way I was? Because the only reason I went to Emily's Bridge is I bought this giant, I have a poster, it's on the other side of my door. The top 50 haunted places in the United States, one for each state. And the one for Vermont is Emily's Bridge. The one for Pennsylvania is Gettysburg. It's supposed to be the top haunted place of each state. And I told my wife, I was like, the one thing I want to do before I die is hit all 50 places. Go to all 50 places around, the United States and try to investigate each one.
So they said for Pennsylvania, it's Gettysburg.
Gettysburg, that's the most haunted. And then
I don't know. I really like Hillview Manor though. Hillview Manor has been pretty good.
See, a lot of times what happens is these people judge by, it's like a popularity contest. It's like when you listen to Billboard. It's like when you listen to Billboard music. It's who votes for it and who listens to it, and you know what I mean? Yeah. So you can't really go, like you said, there might be places that are so haunted and people just don't know about it. Nobody's gone there.
Yeah.
And there's people that make up stuff. Like there's a famous investigator, not famous, but he's the one that gave me the idea for Gettysburg Hotel, that bought a random house that was like the app messed up in Delaware, and he's saying it's haunted because it's in a messed up area, and I think he's just making it haunted. He's making it sound haunted if he can make money off of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
That's the technique. If you buy a house that's totally messed up, there's another thing that could get me hated. If you buy a house that's totally messed up and you can't afford to fix it, make it haunted. You'll get people to pay to stay over, investigate it. You make money with that, and that money you use it to fix up the house. And as you're fixing up the house, you're saying, oh, it's getting more haunted because I'm moving stuff around because of construction.
Yeah, it's pissing them off.
Yeah, and more people give you money. And when it's totally fixed and done, guess what? It's no longer haunted. It's been exercised, and now I can, now I can Airbnb it.
Yeah. You can Airbnb it as a haunted place.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that's very popular. I've done that. I've actually looked, like I do searches to try to find Airbnb
stuff too. That's even like how we were talking about vacations earlier. We usually base our vacations off of something that's in the area. Like, is there anything haunted in the area where we're going?
Yeah.
That's why I do my own trips most of the time without my wife, because she wants to stay at a nice hotel and I want to stay at a haunted place, which doesn't normally coincide.
Yeah, exactly. One place though that you could kind of get both those aspects is the Inspiration House in Ohio. Really nice house. We did get a lot of activity. Definitely one to check out if you want to take the wife on a date night and also investigate a little bit.
Yeah. There's also the one place I did go that was famous was it Boston? It was a famous hotel that they did a speech. One of John F. Kennedy, was Boston, Baltimore. I forgot which one it was. And I went to that hotel, and I didn't tell my son because he was checking out colleges. So I picked a hotel that I knew was supposed to have a haunted floor.
Yeah.
And I used him as a test dummy because I didn't tell him it was haunted. And I went around while he was asleep. I went around trying to take EMF readings and trying to prove things, if it was haunted or not. And then I said, "Hey, how did you feel?" And he's like, "Oh, it was great. It felt fine." I was like, "It's not haunted."
Yeah.
Or it wasn't haunted when I was there.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly. It's hard to say a place isn't haunted just because you don't get activity, because it just really depends on so many different factors, timing,
Like, do you guys believe the 28 days thing? Like with the show, with the one that says, the longer you stay somewhere, the more likely you'll experience stuff, because I guess the spirits get comfortable with you being around and they show themselves more.
Yeah, that was like a Ed and Lorraine theory or something, wasn't it? With the
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what there's a second season coming out supposedly now on that show. But they say that the longer you're there, it's like they get comfortable.
Do you think that's the case, or do you think it's the investigators themselves? The longer they stay there, the more likely that they're gonna create a bias and kind of almost go crazy if you're in an abandoned place for that long.
Part of me, I could go either way. I'm my own devil's advocate. I could say, when they're there long enough, they actually become attuned to the house, so they're able to see and feel things that are not norm, compared to when you walk into a house brand new. You don't know if that's the norm or not. Or you could go stir crazy. These guys in 28 days, they went stir crazy because they literally weren't allowed to leave the houses.
Yeah.
They literally had to order food, takeout to be brought to the house. They had to do everything in the house. Some of them were like ready to leave their shows because they're worried about their families and everything, because they weren't allowed to communicate with anybody.
Yeah.
So maybe they went nutso and started seeing things, or maybe they just got attuned to the house and they actually, like, to me I go a lot to the 1912 Hoover House, a lot, and I felt like every time I go, it gets more and more things happen. Like when I went there the first 2 times, nothing. I felt like I didn't get any EVPs. And then the very last time I went there was St. Patrick's Day with my team, and I actually caught, which I'm probably going to release this week. I just been lazy to do all the editing. It looked like an orb, but the orb didn't come through the camera. It manifested. So I was like, my camera went crazy. It was around 12 o'clock at night. My camera started zipping around, and then it just stopped, and it went black and white. You know how it does when it switches to infrared mode when it locks?
Yeah.
So it switched to infrared mode, but then you start seeing these orbs, these movements, right? But then at one point, there's a picture, an old-time picture in this one room. It's called the Hauser Room, named after the investigator, the Hauser Room at the 1912 house. So right underneath the picture, also you see an orb manifest. Like, it doesn't zoop up. It just manifests. And then it shoots up. And as it shoots up, it looks like it has eyes and a mouth. And I've played it back and I've slowed it down, and it looks like a skull. So I'm like, so that one I've been working with, because it's like, it moves so fast. I've been like trying to mess with different software to slow it down as much as I could.
Yeah.
Like, you can actually see the face part of it. For like, that's someone that doesn't have a quick eye could possibly see what I'm trying to show. But that didn't happen until I've been to 1912 house about 5 times already. So I think it's like, they may get comfortable, or I become more aware of things that, that are not the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just investigating in general, the longer you do it, the more in tune you become, and the more likely you're able to kind of connect with those locations.
It's like your own house. When you lived in your own house in the beginning, when you first moved in, did you sense things? Did you hear things?
No.
Exactly. But as you lived in it longer, you become attuned to the house. So now you know the noises the house makes and the noises the house doesn't make.
Yep.
Well, that's like the house that I grew up in, or whatever, my childhood home. I saw something there the first time I ever had an experience when I was a little kid there. But I had stuff happen there. I lived there for 25 years, and it was maybe 10 things in 25 years. Like, it wasn't all the time, like how people are like, oh, this happens every day. Like, it would be very rare, but there would be something crazy that would happen,
And that's all. I've had, growing up, I only had, like I said, other than relatives also they get possessed at a funeral. I remember clearly one night where I was sick, and I was a little kid. So even now as an adult, I think back, maybe I was hallucinating. But I remember being sick and seeing an old man next to my bed. And the old man had like a certain cap, and he was laughing at a beard, and he was just laughing at me while I was sick. And I woke up my mother, and I told my mother the old man laughing at me. She goes, "There's nothing there, you know." So then my father used to work nights, and he came home that morning, and I told him about the old man. And when I described him, my father said that was his father, who died as a merchant marine.
Oh
I
wow.
was a merchant marine and died, you know, fixing
Yeah.
a. So did I really see something? And right now I go back and to me it was as clear as looking at you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But me knowing what I know as an adult, I know kids could also hallucinate, or me being sick could have made me hallucinate. So I even question my own eyes and things. You know what I mean,
Yeah,
all the time.
I had a similar experience as a kid. I had a family appear at the foot of my bed, but it was like right after I woke up. So it was like, did I just come out of something and like I'm still in my dream, or like looking back and as an adult, that's kind of what I think it was. But as a kid, like I remember, seeing that.
Well, going back to yours, what like when you described it, you described your what would have been your grandfather or great grandfather. Have you ever seen pictures of him
Never.
before? So that
Never.
kind of
I didn't even know what he did for a living. I didn't know anything. You know what I mean? My father was he's very private, my father.
Yeah.
So, he never talked about his family or anything. And somehow I pictured a guy in a hat that I've never seen in my life and described them to the T. And my father was like, you describe your grandfather. I also remember as a kid seeing shadow beings, but was it shadow beings or was it that I was just terrified of the dark?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I remember times I wake up in the middle of the night. You always have those dreams that also you bounce. Like all of a sudden you're about to hit something, you bounce and you wake up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason. So I remember that happening a couple of times, and I would look and I would see beings that were dark standing by the bed. But was it really?
Well, even to this day, sometimes I'll wake up and think I see something.
Yeah.
I've had experiences that were kind of cool, but like even then I question. Like I had one time I was at a place and I saw an indentation on my leg. Literally my leg, there was an indent. Like if someone was pressing on my leg, and you see it go indent.
Yeah.
And I felt like someone was pressing with their finger. But then I told my wife, I was like, that could have been someone pressing my finger, or that could have been just a nerve that was activating.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it was something pressing.
No, your experience as a kid, it reminds me, my cousin's son would always visit my aunt's house, and he always said he had an imaginary friend, and it was a little girl who had no hair. Oh, and for years he would always see her, they'd always interact, and then eventually they started talking to neighbors and whatnot, and the neighbors had a little girl that died of cancer a few years before they moved in. And actually, even saying that, it gives me the chills. Like
that to me is great evidence, great incredible story, because the kids, or they call it tabula rasa, he has no information, he has no belief system unless somebody told him the story. He has no reason to conjure up a person that looks that way.
Yeah.
But anybody else, you always wonder what they heard, what they know. That's why some of these psychic shows where they bring in a psychic to a famous place and they're supposedly surprise, the psychic, and bring them somewhere where I know what's in that house and I'm not the psychic. And there's, I sensed this. I sensed there was a death in this room. Yes, everybody knows there was a death in this room. It's been written about 5 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the funny thing that with a lot of these shows is they'll be like, "Oh, we're going to so and so place or whatever," and like they'll keep it from like you probably know what show I'm talking about. I'm not going to say what it is, but they'll keep it from the rest of the group. They'll be like, "Oh, we're going to so and so," and like you don't know where we're going. Meanwhile, you're driving through these different towns, like you know what's in the area. You've been here before. Like, don't. I hate when like shows play stupid like that.
Correct.
Oh, is that the same show that had the kitty incident at the bourbon facility?
I gotta look that up now. I'm gonna search it. Kitty incident, off air, you guys can tell me which show it is.
Yeah,
because I'm curious now. There's certain shows that I like that you do have shows that do stuff like that, but it's more like it's roommates or friends trying to scare each other, and each person gets a turn picking a place to scare each other. That's fine. But the ones like you said, there are shows where they're heading toward a certain state. They're just there's only 2 or 3 places well known in that place, and they're giving hints. Oh, you've been here before.
I think that takes away some of the credibility with them shows to begin with, because like if you can fake not know where you're going, what's to say you're not faking what you're doing there?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's like when you take these celebrity psychics. which I don't want to mention names, and all of a sudden they're landing, they're getting flown from their home state to your state. The moment they land in that state, they go Google local haunted places.
Yep.
Okay, and what town we're going to, driver? Oh, okay, all right. Now I got the information, and before they even get to the place, they already have an idea of where they're going. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know. I mean, they may even be filled in beforehand on everything.
part of me believes, and it's sad to say this, there's a big part of me that believes that producers are giving information to both parties, and
Yep.
and then they're splicing it in such a way, like even the Dead Files. I love the Dead Files because it comes across with the legit thing of, a New York cop investigates the place, gets all the information. The psychic comes in secondary, and he matches it to see if it matches what he's investigated and discovered.
Yeah.
That's like,
But do we know if really they're being, if really she is that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's like one of the locations we went to this past year. We talked to the owners and everything, and they've had these famous shows there and that. And, on the famous shows, it'd be like, oh, it's just us alone and nobody else there. Well, the one owner was telling us they had a whole camera crew. There was like 20 people there. So, don't act like you're the only people there when you have a whole camera crew too,
Yeah, exactly.
So, they should do that. That'd be a good show. That's something you could probably sell to the networks. Pick a haunted place that nobody knows about and send separate paranormal teams and see what each team comes with.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just a show going to urban, legend locations, because I don't think there's anything like that right now.
Correct. They're interesting to watch when you watch on YouTube some of these urban things that look very scary, especially they all happen in South America. Or I've seen one story like repeated 50 times that happened in different countries, and yet it's not, like the guard who talks to someone who's dead who's not really there. I see that same story 3 different times in different countries, in the Philippines and Mexico. The same incident where there's a guard talking to someone that's not there, and the guy in the camera is wondering who he's talking to.
Yep.
So it's gotten to a point where I don't know if it's real or not. I was like, investigate these things, see if there's any evidence that really, shows.
Yeah, or even see go to all 3 of those locations and see what you get.
I would love to find, my dream is to, if I could make it happen, is to actually have an experience with a ghost that would actually communicate back, like a real life ghost that would actually tell me, yes, I'm dead, my name is so and so, I could verify the information, and and prove that this person existed. Like something I would like, the ghost of Mrs. Muir, something like from the old days where there's an actual ghost communicating back and forth. I would love that. Not fragments, a word here, a pot falls in a room or a noise falls over here. I would love to be able to have a real communication back and forth with a ghost that seems like a person communicate, like what we're doing right now. Imagine being able to do this, but with spirits. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I mean, in the future, it wouldn't surprise me, technology-wise. I mean, it's still kind of like in its infancy right now, paranormal investigating.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've had some pretty remarkable communication. Like some of the ones I can think of is like Walter at Darmine. Just using different devices, though. It wasn't like a communication like we're doing now. It was, we had flashlights, going on and off intelligently. We had, the spirit box.
The flashlights is a thing that's been disproven. I mean,
I agree.
They heat up. When they heat up, the metal expands.
Yeah.
It to shut off.
Yeah, I agree. To an extent, I still think there could be some validity, depending on how they interact. If it is extremely intelligent going on and off, then I think there could be an aspect that it is true.
I think one of the best flashlight things we had was at Hillview, actually, back in the day when me and Jen were there. And we were talking to George in the basement, who's supposed to be a big Steelers fan. And we were naming different players. And we would name players from, like, this era. We named players from the 70s back, like, when he died. And I forget who it was. Maybe Jack Lambert. It was a 70s player was his favorite player. Then we did the same thing with coaches. And Chuck Noll, which would have been the coach of the Steelers back in the 70s, was what it came on for, too. So something like that, when you're naming 20 different people and it goes off with 2 relevant responses, I think that's pretty accurate when it comes to it.
I like the one I put it on our YouTube page. A gentleman named Ryan and I, it was when we were at Moundsville. We were in the chapel, and I was using the flashlight, and I said, can you turn that flashlight as bright as possible if you were, a priest or a preacher at the church? And it did eventually go on. I don't remember the exact questioning. And then I said, can you please shut that off? Shut it off instantly. And then I said, all right, can you put it as bright as possible? I'm going to go through different decades. You tell me when I get to the decade that you were the priest. And I did, the 20s, the 30s. It hit on the 70s. And I said, all right, if it is truly the 70s, can you shut that off? Boom, shut it off. Then I said, all right, I'm going to go through the years. When I get to the year, you let me know turning the flashlight on. I forget what year it was. It was like 76 or something like that. It turned on bright. And I said, okay, can you shut that off just to verify you were a priest or a preacher from the 70s? If that is the case, can you please shut that off immediately? Boom, shut it off. Then at the end of the night, I went back there by myself and I asked for the name through the spirit box, and it said Hoyt. And I went to the people that worked there and I said, what was the name of the preacher in the 70s? And they said it was Reverend James Hoyt.
Oh, wow.
Boom,
That's like that flashlight thing with Lily too. It translated me and Jen had. That was a lot of intelligent responses too.
See, but what matters is as long as the light is doing it at the right time, at the right place, and not just random. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which we had with the flashlight too. We had the flashlight thing going on, and also you could see in the REM pod, you see like an orb go into the REM pod as the same thing was going on.
Oh wow!
So,
yeah.
Like I was telling you before, sometimes there's days that I go on vacation and I'm not with the intention of doing any ghost investigating, but I always carry, I call it a go bag in my car.
Yeah.
It has a camera, it has a K2 meter, it has the basics in case I ever. So one time we were in the beach, my wife and I went to the beach. We went down by Delaware, and we were at this hotel. We stopped in this hotel, and I'm not psychic, but what I do get is like a weird stomach feeling when something is wrong in the atmosphere, I guess. Normally, when something's really haunted, where I would say they might be haunted, I'll get like a weird upset stomach, like a knot.
Yeah.
So we went to this room that we rented out, and it was like I got that knot, and I told my wife, "There's something weird." I said, "Let me go back to the car and get my meter." I had one of those meters with the ATD that you could set it up, and it lights up the lights. So I did that, and I set it up, and then around, no lie, like around 4:00 in the morning. It went crazy. It started lighting up like crazy. And I was like, and I got excited. And I turned on the light and I was like, is there somebody here? Stop the lights. And it stopped it. And then I was like, okay, if you're here, make the lights go off now. And it did it. And I said, make it only go up to orange. And it did everything exactly. And my wife's watching and she's like, can you stop doing that? I'm trying to go to sleep and I don't want any ghosts. And she was getting very upset. So I had to stop.
Yeah.
That's why I go on vacation by myself.
Yeah.
Because she wanted me to stop and I had to respect that. And she was totally terrified of the fact that she watched these lights, and she tells people the story. She watched these lights respond to what I'm asking. Even the colors, it's going up to specific colors and it's going up. And that freaked her out because she knew what I was doing in her mind was just a hobby and stuff like that, something guys do, but to actually see it happening freaked her out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
Talking about vacation and that, where are you going to be this week?
Me, I'm going to Gettysburg. So I'm leaving tomorrow. So I'm going a day early, Thursday. And I'm doing the whole Gettysburg bash. I'm hoping to also take advantage and go to some places. I bought a book called Gettysburg's Hidden Haunting Places, something like that. Okay. It's supposed to be hidden sites and not the average, like the regular. It's supposed to be certain fields by the battlefield that people don't normally go to, certain spots. So I looked at the book and I started marking everything on my Google Maps. So I'm planning to do that with my team. I have people in Maryland and I have people in New York and Jersey. So this is the only time we all get together. So they're gonna be there from Maryland. They want to go to a couple of spots they heard from. I'm definitely probably gonna do Sachs Bridge again, but do it at night.
And people there too. That's how it was last year.
Yeah. And I want to take advantage and do that. So I'll go to the bash, of course, and be there for hours like I was last time, and talk for hours at different tables. But then at the same time, I'm planning that when the bash is over at night, do investigating. And run around and go try and sneak into the battlefield that we're not supposed to be in.
You know?
Shh.
But that's that week.
Twice last year by the cops back to back too.
Yeah, I get people that pull over that they're not even cops. They pull over. I guess they're like local residents, and they go, "Are you lost? Are you, do you need any help?" I'm like, "No, I'm just on my phone. I'm trying to play it off, like."
Yeah.
Because there's certain places you want to go to at night. Because like there's this one place, I don't know the name of it. There was a group of people going from place to place in the battlefield, and so was I. And it was already late at night. And this is when the beginning. This was about 5 years ago. And I went around. I just had a basic K2 meter, and I was there, and the K2 meter wasn't reacting at all. And then these people left, and once the people left, the K2 meter started going up, and it went totally red. And my immediately was like, "Oh, time to go to the car," because I was totally by myself. Now I'm like, damn it, I lost out. Now I'm the opposite. Now that I've experienced over for 5 years, I would have probably stayed there, start talking, asking questions, setting up cameras. But this was in the very beginning. It's funny how you evolve. That's why I complain about shows that have people that have been doing it for 25 years are still screaming like girls running down hallways.
Yeah.
Because how can you do that when you've experienced 25 years? You shouldn't be. That shouldn't even exist.
Yeah, exactly. And even no matter how long you've been doing it, it's like if you're going out seeking the paranormal, when you find the paranormal, you shouldn't run around. You shouldn't run from it. Exactly.
Those are the ghost hunters that run from it.
Yep, exactly.
They go there for the thrill, but they get scared of it. They got their thrill, they overwhelm their senses, and they run. Well, paranormal investigator, you get your senses get overwhelmed, but then you're like, okay, why are my senses being overwhelmed? Let me measure it. Let me find out what. I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You ask questions.
And I'm like a little mad scientist. I have an EDI meter. I have a little thing with temp. I have all these things I set up, and I try to record if they all glitch. To me, it's perfect when they all do something at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm talking about packing everything up in that. Actually, I got to pack some ghost equipment because that's one thing I haven't packed. I packed my clothes. I packed the stuff for our merch and that. But
oh, come on, the ghost stuff should have been first, Sean.
Yeah, I'm packing very little ghost stuff this year because I'm not staying in a haunted place. Unfortunately, I'm staying at an Airbnb. So I'm tempted just to, I was funny because I was telling my wife, should I send a message to the guy that owns the Airbnb, ask him if this place is haunted or where I look weird?
We did that for Harper's Ferry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the place that we were at was supposedly haunted too. Like we got
I'm tempted. My place is I'm staying as an Airbnb on York Street, which is right around the corner from the Farnsworth, right? I think York.
Yeah, I've stayed at the Farnsworth before.
Well, that guy might say, it's not haunted, but he may not be in tune. So it's
and part of me
investigate yourself.
Exactly. And part of me saying maybe it is haunted. That's why he has it as an Airbnb because he can't live in it.
Yeah, exactly.
I make up stories like, yes, maybe it's haunted. So that's the reason I'm bringing basic equipment because I don't want to get a situation where I stay in a place thinking it's not haunted and it ends up being haunted and I have no way of catching any evidence. I'll be so upset.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll end up driving to that Walmart in Gettysburg and spending like $1,000 in equipment just to try to catch it.
Is there anything else you want to promote or whatever?
I'm not doing anything other than the Gettysburg. We're doing in 2 weeks. I'll be doing the Hell House with Eleanor Wagner. I think you guys have heard her, Sussex Hauntings. And I'm also doing something with Jen Colusi's team, Parasite, in November. They invited me as a guest to do the Ritz, that place that they're opening up to do investigation with. And my team and I are just looking for places that they're interested in, that I'm interested in, and see if we could just jump in. So if I get an opportunity to do a Shanley or a Trans-Allegheny or something, I will jump for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, I have none.
Media pages you want to push or anything?
Well, I do have my website, Tower Paranormal Investigations. I also have my YouTube channel, which I would love if people went to it, Tower Paranormal. And I also have an Instagram channel, Tower Paranormal.
Okay.
So it'll be great if people, follow me, share, and give me ideas of things. Like I'm trying to write stuff. I wrote a paper on EVP, which I'll be releasing as a blog. I'm also writing any ideas that people want to investigate. It would be great because I would love to delve into it and try to get answers and stuff and write on both sides. Like I try to write what people believe and the spiritual side. I also try to write the scientific side and see how one can help or prove the other, like I did with EVPs in this paper.
Yeah.
So that's it from me. And I want to say hi to my team members. They're Dennis, Danielle, are the ones from Maryland.
Okay.
We have Kristen and Brooke, also from Maryland. Tommy from Jersey. My son Avery, who's at Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. So I just want to say hi to them and let you guys know that it's great to have a diversified team, and that's what one of my blogs was about.
Yeah, I saw
it's
that
great
one.
to have
Yeah.
a diversified team from different areas because you get great different opinions from different everything from demographics to levels of backgrounds, everything that helps solve things. And I'm so happy I have the team I have. And that's it.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure I'll see you this week.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
be at
you.
your table.
Yeah, for sure. Raul Torres, Tower Paranormal.
Thank you, guys. It was great talking to you guys.
Thanks
You
so
too,
much.
sir. Thank
And
you.
hopefully, Mikey, I'll see you next time if you don't get to go this time.
Yeah, it's my son's birthday. So yeah, I can't this time, but it is what it is.
Happy birthday. Happy
Yeah.
birthday. Bye, guys.
All right,
Bye. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can find us here, and here, and here. Don't forget, everybody needs a little bump in the night.